Rejected servants as a recurring pattern. Chapter 2 Section 1 of the Hidden Servant. Isaiah, the remnant, and the hidden pattern behind Zion's redemption. One of the most important truths a covenant people can recover is that rejected servants are not anomalies in Scripture. They are a recurring pattern. God does not merely send messengers into openly pagan settings, where rejection would be unsurprising. He repeatedly sends them into covenant settings, among people who possess scripture, ritual, memory, and sacred claims, and those very people often prove unable or unwilling to receive them. This means rejection cannot automatically be treated as evidence against a servant. In many cases, Scripture teaches the opposite. Rejection is one of the recurring signs that a servant has come bearing a word too living, too searching, and too disruptive for a self-assured people to welcome easily. Stephen states this with devastating force when he asks, "Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted?" Acts 7:52. His question is not rhetorical ornament. It is a covenant indictment. It assumes continuity between ancient rejection and present rejection. The same fathers who honored earlier revelations also resisted the living messenger sent to confront them. Stephen's point is that Israel's history cannot be read honestly unless one admits that persecution of true servants has been common rather than rare. This is crucial for the framework of the hidden servant, because a people trained to think that true servants will be smoothly recognized by the covenant community has already been trained against the scriptural record itself. Jesus also places himself inside this same pattern when he laments, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee." Matthew 23:37. That sin should permanently unsettle every simplistic theory of religious recognition. Jerusalem is not here described as a pagan city ignorant of God. It is the covenant center. Yet the covenant center is precisely where the prophets are killed. The place most saturated with sacred identity becomes the place most hostile to sacred interruption. That is why the pattern of rejected servants cannot be treated as peripheral. It is central to the very logic of scriptural history. This recurring pattern also explains why later readers so often misjudge the conditions under which a hidden servant would appear. They imagine that if a servant were real, the people of God would naturally sense it, leadership would confirm it, and the community would gather around it with relative clarity. Scripture repeatedly says otherwise. The actual pattern is that a servant arrives carrying a word that exposes, warns, or reorders. The people compare him against their expectations. And because he threatens inherited confidence, they begin to resist him. The servant is thus judged not first by the power of his word, but by the discomfort his presence causes. This is exactly why the history of rejected servants must be restored to the forefront before the later argument of the book can be understood. The hidden servant belongs to this same scriptural law. He is not introduced into a world that neutrally waits for revelation. He enters a covenant environment already shaped by certainty, structure, memory, and resistance. If the pattern holds, then the real surprise would not be that he is resisted. The real surprise would be if he were immediately welcomed by those whose assumptions he must expose. That is why the recurrence of rejected servants matters so much. It teaches the reader to stop using acceptance as the primary test of truth, and to start measuring events by the scriptural pattern itself.